I say it quite often, and it's probably quite a controversial thing to say. I really believe that the social skills are more important in being an efficient user of AI tools or generative AI tools than technical skills. And it's got two parts to it. And I think one is communication. If you are a good communicator, if you're able to, express your ideas in a verbal way, in a clear manner, the outcomes you're getting from the tools are much better. And the second thing is it's all about problem solving. It's not about technology so much. It's about finding the use of technology to resolve whatever you're dealing with.
Welcome to the Product Agility Podcast, the missing link between agile and product. The purpose of this podcast is to share practical tips, strategies, and stories from world-class thought leaders and practitioners. Why, I hear you ask? Well, I want to increase your knowledge and your motivation to experiment so that together we can create ever more successful products. My name is Ben Maynard and I'm your host. What has driven me for the last decade to bridge the gap between agility and product is a deep-rooted belief that people and products evolving together can achieve mutual excellence.
Hello and welcome to the Product Agility Podcast. I am joined today from somebody who's actually in a country where I've never had a podcast guest on from that country. It just dawned on me, like, wow, I've never had someone on the podcast who was in China. Or maybe there was somebody once. Anyway, that doesn't matter. Clearly already distracted. We are joined by Ola Handford. Ola, who is the co-founder of a company named Mind Makers. And where Ola is an expert in the field is around AI. And today we're going to be exploring a few angles on the AI kind of paradigm shift, which I think we're facing in many different industries. And looking to build upon, I think, the episode we had with Dom Heinrich, where Dom and I discussed some elements of AI and design. Today we're going to be taking some slightly different angles. So we are going to be looking at AI and design and how it affects the design process, but we're also going to be looking at AI fluency. Is that the right word? Literacy, yes, AI literacy. What that entails and kind of what are some of the implications of it being present or not present. But anyway, Ola, thank you so much for taking this time out of your day to join me. Would you mind introducing yourself to our listeners?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to share my experiences on the subject. I'm Ola, as Ben said. I'm co-founder and academic director of educational consultancy Mind Makers, where we deliver a variety of AI literacy and AI professional courses. My background is in design, strategy, and research, and for many years I was moving between the commercial design and education within an experience design. Designing interior spaces, strategies for brand, for leisure, and then setting up a variety of educational programs with the universities in the UK, in Europe, and also in China. That's where I'm based right now.
Yeah, but you are not from China originally, are you?
No, I don't look like it, do I? No, I'm actually originally from Poland, but I moved around quite a lot. I spent over 12 years in the UK, a little bit in Middle East, and last 7 or 8 years in China.
Brilliant. Now, let's get into the meat of it, because what I'm really interested to know is how have you ended up in this AI and design confluence, right, that you find yourself in now? What was your story and I suppose what is it that you're really then focusing in on now?
Yeah, so it's a good question. And I always say that AI happened to me. It was not a choice. And it happened to me the same way like it happened to majority of us. And it was in 2022. So it's not that I was not engaged with AI before that, because I worked for many years in designing experiences, exhibition spaces, and so on. And we used a variety of products which include AI, from digital videos, interactive videos to retail solutions. So they were AI driven. But it felt like it was a niche thing. It was, we had like the whole toolbox of different things we can use for storytelling and engaging people with spaces. And, AI was just a kind of a technology on the background. And then, in 2022, first DALL-E was released to public. Then a few months later, the ChatGPT was released to public. And for this area where I worked in education, design education, that started creating a very strong shockwave through the system straight away. So I think like with any of this sort of disruptions in life, that they cause anxiety, and they cause anxiety on a personal level, on an organizational level. How do you adapt to change? And at that point, you just have to make a decision. How do you respond to it? And rather than leaning towards the anxiety, I made a conscious decision, lean into curiosity and sort of embrace it, and look for solutions, how you can use those tools to enhance creativity, to enhance critical thinking, contextualization, and start playing with those tools to actually enable our, enhance our very human abilities. And that's where the idea of AI mindset was born. And, that's where we sort of keep circulating around. It's like, how do you approach AI more than, how do you develop a technology solution?
I love what you said about embracing curiosity over anxiety. I think that's just a very good life lesson anyway.
My background is actually in psychology.
Have you found that background in psychology has been beneficial to you in the work you do now?
Definitely. So it was very beneficial working commercially with design, because I work very much with human-centric solutions. So, understanding how people engage with design it's very, very valuable. Then within the education, how people learn and what do they engage and what they find meaningful, very engaging. And right now, working with AI, I know I say it quite often, and it's probably quite a controversial thing to say. I really believe that the social skills are more important in being an efficient user of AI tools or generative AI tools than technical skills. And it's got two parts to it. And I think one is communication. If you are a good communicator, if you're able to, express your ideas in a verbal way, in a clear manner, the outcomes you're getting from the tools are much better. And the second thing is it's all about problem solving. It's not about technology so much. It's about finding the use of technology to resolve whatever you're dealing with. So this sort of a background in psychology, I actually find very, very useful in dealing with AI.
You mentioned there about good communication and being able to clearly express your ideas. And I've absolutely found that I have had to tweak the way that I communicate when using tools such as ChatGPT in order to get the right information out of it. And anyone that's listened to my episode of Dom Heinrich or other things I've done here and there will know that I think that ChatGPT, I use that. I use it as an example. It's great if you can ask it good questions.
Yeah.
And if you're faced with the world expert in, who knows, psychology, and you don't know anything about psychology, and you can't communicate what you want to understand properly, then it's not going to give you probably very good information. It'll probably be very generalized. If there was any tip you could provide to people to, I suppose, up their ability to communicate in this regard, like what is it you could suggest to them?
Well, I think that the clarity of communication. And I don't know if you came across that. There is this YouTube from a few years ago with a dad and two children. And it's showing how do you put a peanut butter on a toast. And it's really funny. Just watch that, that's sort of circulating online. And, the children write the script. How do you put, you take the butter knife, peanut butter, you put it on toast. And the dad does it as they say. And, he ended up sort of squashing the jar on the toast and things like this. And I think the dad acts like ChatGPT. You do have to be very explicit. You have to, AI doesn't have this contextual knowledge we have as humans, that sort of a shared thousands of years of history where we're filling gaps and we're reading between the lines. It does what it's told. So, building on that, on the clarity of communication and being very explicit of what you want ChatGPT to do for you, then you're getting good answers. And now I agree with what you said, that, if you're not psychologist, you cannot ask good psychology question. And I says well, AI makes you better in what you're already doing well. So if you understand your area of expertise, the way you work, it will really, really help you. It can help you with brainstorming, can help you with learning, but you have to learn how to ask those questions. You have to learn, what's the standards you want to achieve first.
And I suppose the repercussions for that are that hopefully we could become better communicators with the people in our lives too, which is not
I really believe that, that the one of the benefits of AI is it will make us better communicators. And I really believe it will make us more creative, and it will probably make us more empathic if we use it in the right way.
This is what I'm wondering. I'm thinking maybe some people are listening and thinking, well, this is fantastic. But what you're asking us to do is to be really clear in our communication and almost maybe robotic and procedural with it. Like there is a a big thing, and we were looking at the IC Agile, kind of big Agile certification body, looking at their learning outcomes for their initial kind of foray into AI. And it talks in there about prompt engineering. Prompt engineering is a big thing. It makes it sound very procedural. It makes it sound very transactional. And it makes, and I think that maybe in some people's minds, if I bring this back to the original topic around design and AI, how on earth can you be creative if what you're doing is being so kind of procedural and you're engineering something? How does that kind of come together into something that's actually then useful?
I really don't like the term prompt engineering. I think
what would you prefer?
Just communicating. I mean, there's the first thing is that, it's one of those sort of fancy words somebody came up with and it picked up, but it's got a very wrong connotations because, most of us are not techie people and we don't want to be techie. So you say, you have to learn prompt engineering, and most people say, no, I'm too busy. That sounds complicated. I don't want to go into it. And then they just like, okay, I will not deal with AI. If you tell people, well, you've got this bot and you need to learn how to effectively communicate the same way, you want your child to do something, you want your assistant to do something, you have to find a way to connect with the person. Here you have to connect with the bot. You're basically making them do what you want. I'm far away from saying it's robotic. I think communication is a very creative task.
I just been making some notes as you were talking. I've been a professional coach for many years, and part of being a professional coach is being able to ask the question at the right time in a certain way. But never in all my coaching education did I ever call it question engineering.
Well, yeah, exactly. Right.
I mean, technically, kind of that's kind of what it was in a way, but it was never mentioned like that because it would absolutely create a barrier. It would make people push it away because engineering is a big, scary word for many people.
Yeah. I love your analogy in a question engineering. You could take it to like psychotherapy, like question engineering. It's like, well, no.
I did start off with conversation engineering, and I got specific and thought, well, question engineering. But I think maybe that's part of the mindset shift then for many people to make, is to see these chatbots, right? And I think that Dom, my friend, was saying, let's not get confused here, but it isn't really artificial intelligence. There's no intelligence, really. It has to wait for us to ask it something. I mean, it gives us something based upon that. But even if you're sending it a photo of your face saying like, can you say something this is how I feel today. Can you say something to make me feel different? You're still giving it an input, which is a picture of your face. So I think that maybe if we get over the fact of it, is it artificial intelligence or not, but think of them as chatbots, which need good questions asked, and how do we kind of figure out ways to kind of engage in the conversation with this chatbot? I think perhaps then that would help us.
This analogy of like, treating it as a new hire. So, you just imagine this assistant, and very, very keen, very capable in many different areas, but quite clueless, not intelligent. If you imagine a young assistant, if you don't guide them well, they will go nowhere. You need to structure things for them. You need to be very clear what you want to achieve, what the quality you want to achieve as well.
So I'm going to signpost something for later. I don't want to dive into it right now, but I was making custom GPTs yesterday for my Agile coaching course, which I'm running. And so I've made a custom GPT for an Agile coach, and I've given it all of the information I can do. But I've also given it is the Agile Alliance Coaching Code of Ethics. And I've given it guidance on to how to kind of make sure that it gives the right responses and keeps them within the right ethical boundaries. I'm also creating custom GPT to be a team member from a case study that I wrote. So people can then you can either get them talking to each other, or as the people who come on my course can kind of ask either of the custom GPT's information. Now, for me, that whole process is, I would say, quite a creative process, because I'm not just sitting down and just like procedurally going through something. I'm having to think, I'm having to research, I'm having to decide what to give it. I'm also having to decide what type of synthetic human am I trying to create with this. So in your experience and kind of what you've been teaching, and I know you're writing a book as well on AI plus design, which maybe to touch on at some point, is that how do you see AI stimulating creativity, particularly in design practices?
It's an interesting one. It's like, when I started playing with ChatGPT, my first impression was this thing is incredibly creative. And it started with treating it a bit as a toy. It's like creating spoof lyrics for things, or, turning Harry Potter characters into cats, and, the silly things. But my first impression is like, well, you've got this thing which you can play around. You can play around with your ideas. And then came reflections like, okay, how do you use it to get job done. And I think, the thing with the AI chatbots is that they come with lots of ideas, and they're not necessarily very good ideas. But they come with those seeds of ideas, which through conversations you can shape further. And I think it was Mark Twain who said that all the ideas are secondhand ideas. So the way our brain works, we just connect things. Nothing is fully original. We just connect things, and the AI has got this ability to connect much more things than our brains do. They just combine ideas, and that's visible in text-based tools. It's visible in visual tools like Midjourney. So we work in design. We work quite a lot in Midjourney, and the way it connects takes references from these different things and connects them in a very unexpected way. For me, this is the sign of creativity. And then you take it further. So we play a lot. Creativity training was one of the first trainings which we developed, and we play with this idea. I don't know if you're familiar with this kind of creative exercise, out of domain ideas. So let's say in designing an airport, or you're designing a hospital, an interior space, and you're trying to resolve how people engage, how people move through the space, how people engage with the retail, leisure, and so on. So rather than looking just at the similar type projects, similar interior design, you would look at different industries. You may look at biomimicry and look like, okay, let's see how ants travel so they don't create congestion, right? Let's look at maybe cognitive psychology or gaming to see how maybe there are an opportunity to reward people in certain points of this, moving through the space, engage them or manage them better. So this is kind of one of an exercises which we do with students in design. And then if you feed this idea to ChatGPT, it looks everywhere. We all got our buckets of knowledge and our buckets of references we always relate to, but our knowledge is quite restricted. Our contextual knowledge, we specialize in a few different things. But then you give this question to ChatGPT, it looks at everything. So it gives you like the lists of things which you would never consider yourself. And then, some of them will be bad, but some of them will have this seed of an idea which you can shape much further. So I think this is where the opportunity, AI tools to enhance our creativity really is.
I suppose it ends up being like sifting for gold. You have a lot of ideas and you're just trying to find that one little nugget, which then sends you off in the right direction.
The spark, like I've never thought about it, never thought about this connection before.
Really interesting. Have you got any specific examples?
Well, the example of the airport was actually an example we work with students out of the main ideas in the big spaces. So how do you manage a movement of people? I've got lots of ideas where we look at the visual inspiration. So we do visual research or visual ideations with Midjourney. This is part of our training. So a simple exercise of designing a chair. I think in designing a chair is sort of a very, very nice exercise because it's really focused attention on a narrative, on a story. And combining modernist shapes with what we do here in China with traditional patterns coming from ceramics, for example. The sort of thousands of years of history of ceramics. And, when you clash those two ideas and then you add another elements of materiality, what materials you could actually, using a foam, using wood, using glass, and so on. You just sort of visually clashing those ideas. That it leads you into areas which you would probably not consider by yourself. And I think, that does open, and it's not design, it's not finished design, but it opens ideas of exploration, the sort of lines of inquiry, which you probably would not go without AI.
Fascinating. It's just a stupid thought. And it's, I think it's just me being silly. But I remember years ago, decades ago, a programming tool called Visual Basic. And I wanted about bringing together the old and the new. Is AI going to start suggesting that we bring in kind of some Visual Basic design patterns back in? No, I wouldn't mind that. I'd be quite comfortable with it. But, it's because I'm old. Yeah, that does make me smart. I mean, that is how similar that ChatGPT is just to the original kind of command line terminals. When it is just you just prompting something and getting something back, and how we've had all this time kind of design these amazing user experiences for the digital products we create, and then one of the products that has the biggest impact on the world is just going back to the old school text on a screen. Yeah. When I first came across you on LinkedIn, it was a particular post that piqued my interest. I don't know if this is a good kind of jumping off point to kind of cover this or not, but it was the post you did on training you were doing or some work you'd done on synthetic personas.
Yeah.
And I just felt that really piqued my interest. I was wondering, is this a good opportunity for you just to kind of explore a little bit of that?
So I told you that my initial background is in psychology. So I never had issues with believing that AI can be very creative. I was like, because that just worked for me straight away. I like this sort of a playful creativity. But it took me a very long time to accept that AI could stimulate our empathy.
Interesting. Okay, so it can
Because
stimulate creativity, but not empathy.
yeah, and so like, my sort of personal feeling is that's human, it's machine cannot do it. And I don't think I sort of fully resolved that for myself. I think there's areas which I find quite scary, and I think areas which I would not recommend going. So, there's areas where, artificial boyfriend, artificial psychotherapist, and, those situations then where the human relationship really matter. I don't think we should hand it over to AI. I think that will produce very lonely and unhappy people. So, this sort of the whole area of artificial intimacy, I'm very happy to leave it to humans rather than...
That's a very different type of AI when you start talking intimacy.
But we have to accept that AI is very good at mimicking people and is very good at mimicking empathy. So where I would not go into replacing real relationships, but in a business settings, when we're trying to get feedback, where we're trying to get understanding of other people, AI does do the job very, very well. We have the experience we have, and we have the understanding we have. And I suppose as we get older, we get a little bit more wisdom and with a little bit more understanding what other people might think or feel or behave. But this experience is still quite restricted. So if you start thinking about the users, customers, clients, whatever you want to call them, areas where you don't have expertise from a different culture or different type of experience, maybe social status, economic status, I don't know, maybe disability or whatever else where you don't have your first-hand knowledge and understanding, it's very difficult to put yourself in somebody else's shoes. So in design thinking, we do empathizing, and it's a very simple concept, but very difficult to deliver it well. And then AI just gives you this opportunity to create, synthetic personas, synthetic users, whatever you want to call them, where you describe their behavior. You give them the certain characteristics from the area which you're not familiar with, and then you can have the conversations with them. So, it's great for exploring problems. It's great for exploring challenges. It's okay with feedback on the final product, as long as it's text-based. It's not very good with the images. But, you can describe a solution, you can describe an app, a product, a service, and get the feedback from static users, how they would respond to your solution. What would they highlight as a problem? And that's where it really, really works well.
How much information do you have to provide in order to create a synthetic persona in regards to behaviors and et cetera, or values and whatever else? Because I think that at the high level, it sounds quite simple, but as someone that's kind of created a few kind of custom GPTs and has kind of tried to spend time really trying to create something which could be a good analog of a real person. Yeah. I always struggle with knowing how much to put in and kind of how specific I need to get with it. So have you got any examples maybe of what we could be expecting to put in?
It depends on the depth of insight you need, I suppose. So if you're looking at something fairly general, it's very little, because it will take information from whatever it's trained on. If you're looking at something quite specific, then I would say you need to train it much more. And a good example is being here in China, the Chinese customers are not represented enough, and they underrepresented in the training data. My designers here start creating Chinese personas. It doesn't work very well. It's I don't know if you came across this concept, weird people, the weirdest people of the world. There's this the research from 2010 or something like this, which studies that majority of psychological experiments and tests were made on a Western population. Weird is Western, educated, industrialized, democratic.
Yeah, rich and democratic. Because when you sent me the notes and like what you wanted to talk about, you mentioned weird, and you said the weirdest people in the world. I didn't pick up it was an acronym. I just thought it was like a strong opinion you held. But it was actually an acronym. So Western, educated, industrialized, rich and democratic is weird. I'm with you now. Right.
Yes. The weirdest people of the world, right? But if you look at whichever way the AI was trained, the majority of data is Western data. And then, its majority is white and middle-aged men type of thing. So it always have a bias towards that solution. So if you're working in a populations which you know that will be not represented enough or will be underrepresented, then you do need to adjust that. So you do need to feed it with additional knowledge, and that might be trend reports, customer reviews, whatever it might be. But yeah, that's where you will be getting much more mistakes and clarity.
Fascinating. And you've got training courses on that, or information that people can find if they are interested in learning more about a particular topic?
We do have sort of comprehensive courses. So we do cover customer engagement as a unit in our courses, and synthetic personas being part of that. Things like customer sentiment analysis being another part of that as well.
Lovely. And if I normally do signposts and stuff and some things at the end, but it's particularly interesting to me and I think to a lot of my listeners. So if people who are interested in your courses, do they have to come to China to come to a university to get them, or is there another way they can?
I would welcome that, obviously. No, not at all. We deliver most of our courses online.
Okay, great. Yeah. Super. I'll make sure adequate links are in the descriptions. Now, your upcoming book, AI plus Design, can you tell us a little bit more about what's going to be in that and what people can expect from it?
Yeah, sure. So I've been doing design training for a while. We started with design training, then moved to general AI literacy, and right now going back to AI training. The idea is it's a very, very practical book. So we're sort of steering away from any sort of theoretical things, and we're just showing exercise by exercise. How can you build strategy for design? How can you create the mood board in Midjourney for your particular type of projects? How can you conceptualize sketches to the visuals? So we've got several sections. We're just looking at the design process, and we sort of created particular workflows for each of those stages. We try to show it stage by stage how you can use different tools to enhance your design process, which most of our examples are from interior design and product design.
Is this going to be a book that people have to purchase, or are you doing it as an ebook, like a free ebook?
It will be a published book.
Oh, great. Where can people sign up to learn more about this or to buy the book?
We'll be updating a website so when we've got the cover design, we will be putting it on our website, and we'll go, ultimately on Amazon as well.
Did you use AI to help with the design of the cover?
The cover will have some of the images created in our courses, yes.
Okay, great. Well, it's good to see you're kind of embracing it and not being, no, we'd never use it for something so important. Oh, dearie me. Okay, so we're well into our kind of allotted time together, and I really want to pick up on some of the AI literacy training that you've been doing. I mean, you were saying you've trained over 1,000 people, 1,000 professionals even in AI literacy. Yeah. And I'm just wondering then, first of all, because I think maybe I did wonder, should we cover AI literacy first and then the deeper topic? But I think actually now we've kind of built this lovely kind of picture of AI and design and all the synthetic personas and that element of it. If we take a step back and say, well, what does it mean to be literate in AI?
I suppose there's different levels, but I think we're sort of in this very unique stage of history where we all have to upskill, and we all have to keep upskilling because AI keeps changing. So when I think about AI literacy, it's understanding the tools a little bit. So, what they are, what they can do, but it's very much understanding how you can incorporate them into your workflows. So, whatever you do, you're a designer, you're an accountant, you're a lawyer, it's how different tools can enhance your process. So it's actually looking at your process, breaking it down into different elements, different tasks, and understanding where it can change, which parts can be automated, which parts you're sort of happy to give over to AI because they're time consuming, they're hideous, or you just don't like doing them, and which tasks are just me tasks because you actually feel the value of doing it, makes you feel good, or you think AI will not be able to be better at it. But it's finding those tasks where you can work together with AI. So it can make you a better in whatever you're doing. And I think discovering, and you talked about curiosity before, it's like this sort of a curious approach to your own work, and like discovering those areas which you can really enhance with AI, and developing this sort of open mindset. Like, okay, my work is changing. I'm okay with that. How AI can make me better practitioner in whatever area I work is probably for me the key element of AI literacy.
I'm just reflecting on some of the processes that we have internally with us and my companies. And I think we have been not consciously on that journey, but maybe because my history being a kind of business analyst and doing lots of process work, particularly with the podcast, breaking it down to the stages, understanding where is it valuable for a human to be engaged, or where actually maybe might we experiment with a certain tool or try and find a certain tool to pick up some of that work, because we don't think that actually it's worthwhile wasting our time on. And we've been through a huge journey when it comes, particularly with the podcast. I think all the tools we use have some element of AI, regardless of how fully fledged it is. But I think that really helps. So if you're training people then to help understand, to look at the processes, break it down, and kind of make those particular judgments as to how they can kind of experiment with AI and kind of help them make them more effective or creative. Do you feel that there is then risks associated for people in not trying to become literate in AI?
There are quite a few risks. And, the one which is quite obvious and the one which we can really relate, I think most people can relate to, is sort of staying behind. So if you've got people around you start using AI, they become more productive, more efficient or whatever, and you don't. Then they opportunities, career progression, whatever, they just better. So if you choose not to engage, then there is a risk that you will stay behind and you will lose certain opportunity. And what we can see right now, I work with lots of young practitioners, which sort of either entering the profession or sort of first years of professional development. We can see that employers like seeing AI skills. So if you've got two candidates and one of them's got AI skills and the other one doesn't, and they're equal, the employer will choose the one with AI skills, because the leaders know that as an organization, they have to grow their AI skills. So they want to look for people who can sort of support that move as well. So that's sort of the obvious, a very practical thing, which I think people sort of understand and can relate to straight away. But I'm an educator, so I kind of like zooming out and looking at the bigger picture. And this is not the idea which is easy to sell to people, but I think we do have actually a responsibility to learn AI, because we are being controlled by tech companies right now. And then, whoever is developing those tools, they becoming in power, they start having much more control over how we consume, how we create this content. So if we don't have understanding what's happening, then this is quite easy to imagine that we will become victims in it's like, if you don't protest, if you don't protect your own rights, then somebody else will.
It's a funny one, because I use ChatGPT to generate a few questions. And to give me some seeds, some ideas. And I've been picking bits out and getting a few avenues. But the weird thing was, and I don't know if this is because obviously I told it, so gave it some of the notes that you gave me, but it asked about, the skills gap and the AI literacy and kind of mitigation. But it also said that, and I read it verbatim because I haven't read any, I've kind of taken my own angle on some of them, but one of them was saying, how can general AI literacy helping shaping the future and making tech companies more accountable?
Yeah.
Now, what I find interesting then with what you were saying was that, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but if we can increase the net level of AI literacy, it enables the society to hold tech companies more accountable for the decisions and actions that they take.
I think this is a very important part of AI literacy, because you can count on the governments only that much, right? Do we really trust governments that they will control it well for us? Probably not. But if with the society there is a general opinion, no, we don't want to go there because this is dangerous. I don't want to share my data. I want to have a control how bias is shaped in AI. With this sort of a general knowledge and general experience, I do believe that we do have more power in where things are going to go.
So would you say that from an educational perspective, and this isn't a question that I would normally ask, I'm going to take it'll be a slight flip on how I would normally ask this type of question, but from an educational perspective, what would you say the implications are for not introducing AI to students?
There's lots of questions. Is it ethical to use AI in education? My question is is it ethical not to use it? Because we're preparing these next generations to enter the market where AI will be present. So if we don't, they've got a huge disadvantage on the market. They don't know how to enhance their abilities. They don't know how to deal with the whole ethics of the ethics of AI is a massive subject which touches on so many different things. If they don't have this knowledge, then we're preparing the next generations for very different. We are preparing the next generation for life in a different world, and we're not preparing them. I work with the faculties quite a lot, and they vary. Some of them are much more open towards AI than others, but it's very common for the professors to say no, we don't do AI. It's it's cheating and it will kill critical thinking and all of that. And actually, my point of view of that is like, yeah, it kills critical thinking if you don't show how to use those tools to enhance critical thinking.
Has there been anything, and this is maybe a slightly tangential thing here, but something that's analogous to this through history? Like what was the last big shift that came about that if you weren't taught it at a certain junction in your life, you would be left behind?
I think nothing hit us that fast. So that's the sort of a difference. But, it's like if you look at the internet, so internet came when I was in high school, and I was probably the first generations where we were taught how to write an email in a high school, how to do an online search. We were 17 or 18, I don't remember, but that stage of our life. And then, through sort of university, the sort of internet digital literacy was built slowly into the programs. And then when we entered the market, we were the first generation who was going to work in offices, and we knew how to write emails and how to search internet, while our bosses didn't. I think that's what we will be seeing here as well.
Yeah. No, I always like an analogous type scenario because I think it helps my brain kind of understand it a bit more. And I was talking to a gentleman who's coming on the podcast soon. His name's, I hope I get this right, I think it's Jack Skills. He's written a book called Agency Agile. But we were talking about video games, because he used to work in agencies that made video games, and some really, really big video games. And he was saying, because he's an older chap, and he was saying, modern video games is just too much for him. It's just because there is just more going on, but there's a whole social element to it as well, which didn't exist before. And I feel the same. If I'm going to pick up a video game, I pick up one from a long time ago, or I pick up a single player game, because the learning curve for me to play a game where there's lots and lots of stuff going on, I can do it, but then having to talk to people and the other element of it, that isn't something that I've had to learn. And so I'm left behind when it comes to video games, for many video games, because I'm just like, do you know what? It isn't like, I think it's easy for us to say that we don't, as humans, to say we don't like something, when the truth is we can't be asked or are too scared to learn about it.
Yeah. But you not playing a game will not change your life. You just don't play the game. And when you've got something like AI, which influences all of our areas of life, if you don't engage that will have influence on how you function.
Yeah. Perfect. I think maybe we bring it to a close. Unless, is there a particular topic or something in particular that you really wanted to kind of get across to the listeners before we wrap up?
You know what? Going back to your analogies, one which came to my mind, and that might be the sort of a closing one. When back in the 90s, they created chess playing machine. It was called Deep Blue, right? I don't remember the exact name. And it was the first machine which won a game with Kasparov. And there's quite a lot of opinions right now. That's the end of a chess game, because like a computer can win it. Well, what's the point of playing? It's not fun anymore, right? The computers are better. But it actually had a very adverse effect. The sort of a synthetic players or simulation players, they actually make the players much better, because playing with machine really develop people's skills. And I think, it's a small thing, but I think with the AI, we've got the same opportunity. It can make us better. It can make us more creative. It can make us think more critically or better in whatever we are doing. And, if I was to leave your listeners with a message, kind of an overarching message, I would say it's like, just adopt this thinking. It's like, how can we use this thing to make us better?
Brilliant. And you've given me a lot to think about with that last little story, because I think it's very true. But I'm not going to... I'll talk to you a bit more when we stop recording, because I think that probably people don't want to hear me bang on about the thing I was going to bang on about football teams and, that type of thing. But, Ola, thank you so much for coming on. It's been one of the quickest 45 minutes of my life. I've loved listening to you. So much fantastic information and so well and articulately put. So thank you so much for coming on and taking this time out of your late afternoon to share your thoughts and insights and expertise with our listeners. Should people want to find out more about you, I assume that LinkedIn is the best place for them to find you?
It is. I think it is. Yeah, I'm sharing quite a lot on my private account, so it's easy to find me. Or our website, Mindmaker's website. That's probably quite a good place to go as well.
Brilliant. And I see so much has been covered. I'm going to fail to give a full recap, but everything from AI and design and synthetic personas and how AI can help spark creativity, and AI and empathy, anxiety over curiosity, the risks of not being literate in AI, touched on some of the ethical considerations. There's so much fantastic information there. And Ola, thank you so much for that. And one thing I say, anyone that's listening to this that does look Ola up on LinkedIn. Do click follow, because so much of the content that Ola puts out is just like, to sound very English with this, it's top notch. It's really good quality content and always something very fantastic to read. So do follow Ola, and do follow the Product Agility Podcast on LinkedIn and on the podcast platform of your choice. Or if those call to actions leave you dead, right, and they don't do anything for you, how about you recommend this episode to someone that you think would like it? Because the best way to get growth in the podcasting world is through people recommending it. More and more people are, and we'd love it if you did too. So recommend this to a friend, a loved one, anyone. I don't really care, but please do recommend it. Anyway, we're done. Thank you so much, Ola, again. Thank you, everyone, for listening. This has been the Product Agility Podcast, and I am Ben Maynard. We'll be back again next week.
Thank you very much.